All right, guys, got to blow the whistle, open up a page from Payne's investment playbook. Now, today, President Obama spoke at Georgetown University's Poverty Summit, pitching really several ideas that we've heard in the past, but defending against one negative about the poor. Take a listen.
Sadly, I think there's been an effort to either make folks mad at folks at the top or to make be mad at folks at the bottom. I think the effort to suggest that the poor are sponges, leeches, don't want to work, are lazy, are undeserving, got traction.
Now, who would demonize the top? I don't know. Anyway, President Obama's participation here coincided with the release of the Progressive Contract with America. It was presented by New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, and the contract featured 13 agenda items, including some of these things you might be familiar with: universal pre-K, paid family leave, $15 minimum wage, higher taxes on the rich, union-friendly laws, opposition to trade deals, and immigration reform. Now, it's quite a wish list, and it would probably require more than just higher taxes on the wealthy, but these are the central issues of our time and at the heart of what America will become and what we're going to be fighting about over the next couple of years, guys. You know, I think it's pretty interesting. It brings us to our next real deal. We've seen elections in the last year where it's been echoed around the world. Most recently in England last week, Israel, Indonesia, India. This guy in India, Modi, you would thought he was in the Tea Party. So we've got the all-star panel. We're going to talk about this. We've got Republican strategist Nick Porchy's back with us. Thank you. Along with trial attorney Aaron Ehrlich. I think it's your first time on the show. Nice having you.
Thank you for having me.
And she's back. Ready to go. Fox News contributor Jamu Green. All right, Noel, President Obama said that there's a role for free markets, but it must include this sort of public-private kind of thing that he talks about so much. And, you know, on the other end of this, of course, where you have de Blasio and these guys, they're offering no olive branches at all. Which camp will have the most influence on Hillary? Will it be her husband's old economic policies? Will it be this new, serious progressive push? It seems like they've got momentum.
I think that they do have momentum, but I think that she is banking on the Bill Clinton push. I think that that is going to make her seem a little bit more palatable to some of the people that might be on the fence. And a lot of those people are the people that she is going to have to really pander to get her brand across.
Do you agree with that, Jaboon? Or is it sort of a dilemma, like in the primaries, you may have to go real left to energize the voters because, I mean, she's got no opposition, but when it comes to the general election, maybe move toward the middle?
Well, I think it's politics, and whether it's Hillary Clinton, Jeb Bush, Ted Cruz, or Bernie Sanders, that's what's going to happen on both sides of the aisle. I think that
we know Jeb. Well, maybe Jeb will go socialist. We don't know. Okay. But we do feel like the GOP candidate won't pick up the de Blasio marching orders. What I'm trying to find out, though, is will the Democratic Party be? Will they actually be more to the left, more to the de Blasio camp, or could they be somewhere in the middle?
Well, I think that with Hillary Clinton, if she becomes a nominee, she's going to be the candidate of common sense. And I see that as being more to the middle, more palatable to independents, not pandering, just actually being realistic and wanting to get something done.
All right, what do you make of the president's comments, that the poor are cast in this negative light? That they're just using the system. He went on, of course, to condemn Fox News for ever talking about the Obama phone, and that people are just thrilled to be lazy and at home and scarfing up welfare. What do you make of that?
Well, it's interesting because I practice in Newark, New Jersey, which is a economically depressed area. I actually also practice in landlord-tenant law, and a large part of that practice actually consists of dealing with federal subsidy programs such as the Housing and Urban Development Section 8 program. And while I see the benefit of these programs, we need these programs, I also see how fundamentally flawed they are and how we need to be able to incentivize.
When you say flawed, you mean that somehow when people get on them, it's hard to get off of them?
It's incredibly hard to get off of them, and it's not because they're lazy, and it's not because they're poor. It's because the ramifications of even a small increase in their income will result in such a harsh reality for them, losing a much needed subsidy.
Right. No. And I think that's the important point. It's not that they're lazy, and it's not to villainize the poor, but a culture of dependency is self-reinforcing. And by the way, it directly benefits the Democrats. We have almost 50 million Americans right now on food stamps. That's the entire West Coast population of the United States. What percentage of them do you think vote for Democrats? It's absolutely overwhelming. And by the way, when the president speaks of income inequality, the primary driver of income inequality is government policy between the Federal Reserve, between regulation, between taxation. That is what is exacerbating.
Well, there's no. I don't think it's. I don't think it's a coincidence that the greatest places in this country for income inequality have been run by Democrats and progressives for a long time. Whether it's California, Washington D.C., you have very wealthy people juxtaposed with very poor people.
But here's the thing. Why does everybody have to win in America? You know, why does every kid on the soccer field have to win a trophy? I mean, there's got to be competition. This is the core of capitalism.
I guess what people would say to that, Lori, though, is what you're saying is that if you don't win in capitalism, you should get nothing. You should eat dirt.
Well, there has to be a safety net. No, but that's the problem. This is what we discuss day after day, is where does the line fall? What is the appropriate amount of support, of aid? And for the president, again, to just be so bifurcated, to say the haves and the have-nots.
That's what scares me, because I think we've gone past, and to your point, I think we've gone past a safety net, and it feels like the more we layer, now from this point on, the more goodies we layer onto this, the more difficult it will be to get off of it.
It's incredibly difficult to get off of it. That's where it's not the agenda that's the problem, it's the implementation. But we need policies and laws that actually work, that really create incentives, that don't just say we want rent stabilization, that also say, well, we want landlords to also invest money into these properties.
So you want a landlord to invest in a property where they can't raise the rent?
What?
You want a landlord to invest in a property where they can't raise the rent?
I don't. I think that's the fundamental problem, because we have tunnel vision. The liberal perspective is approaching it from such a limited perspective, and not seeing the full picture.
But it's also a genius, because they tee it up for the Republican Party to have to go against some of these welfare programs, which makes us look like, oh, we're against, you know,
well, you're going to look heartless. I mean, bottom line, you're going to look heartless.
You're stripping the safety net out, and you're saying there are going to be winners and there are going to be losers, and people need to go hungry. As someone who grew up dirt poor, I know for certain that when you're in that situation, you are not lazy. You want to do everything you can to get out of that. So how did you get
out of it?
And, well, I worked for it. My parents provided an example for me. I had opportunities through mentorship. I have opportunities.
So there's a template for getting out of it.
There's absolutely, and policies.
And no one held you back. Then no one from the Tea Party came and physically held you back.
I had a quality education in Austin, Texas, that most people do not get. If your zip code determines if you're going to live a lifetime of poverty, there is something broken with the American dream.
I don't think it does, though. I disagree.
It does.
I cannot tell you how many people.
My zip code was dirt poor too, and I made it out of there.
I can't tell you how many people I've had to evict for paying maybe $100 rent, and you ask them what's going on, and do you want to try to get a job? But then, on the flip side, is that they tell me that if we go even work, let's say, at McDonald's and get minimum wage, we lose the ability to.
Here's the bottom line, and I do know that there's some of these goodies have gotten so bad, so good, if you want to think of it that way, that when you get off of them, you might actually take a step backward economically, but now you are on the rung. What we call the ladder of success. And shortly thereafter, you can start to make your way up. So that little temporary loss should be temporary, and someone should sell that. The Republicans should sell that. That's what I have a problem with. The Republicans cannot sell that notion that, hey,
Charles,
step off that so-called safety net that's really it's bondage. It's not a safety net. It's tied you up.
It depends on who delivers the message. It's all in the messenger. Who is going to deliver our narrative that people are going to respond to?
And that's an important point, and that's why
conservatives have burned the ladder down. When you have 300% increases in executive pay and productivity is up and wages have stagnated, when companies are doing better and workers are not,
about people who aren't improving their lives. We're talking about people who are saying, okay, you know what, I'm in the welfare system and I'm going to stay here because it's too comfortable to get out of it. And I think that has nothing to do with anybody else except the individual.
In the welfare system.
Let's talk about some news that just broke, guys, too. I really want your opinion on this because the lawsuits are beginning, right? The dean of University of Virginia going after Rolling Stone for painting her as the villain. You know, that made-up rape story. I want to tell you about it. I want these ladies and Steve to opine on it because it's a big deal. We'll be right back.